Much better looking, by the way. Yes, ma'am. What's your...
Okay, so I'm here tonight. I'm a resident of Ware, obviously. I live right here on Flanders Memorial Road of 16 years. And we currently have a small hobby farm. And we are looking to actually turn it into a larger scale farm, if you will. We'd like to turn it into a farm for mainly a place for employment for adults with autism, specifically over the age of 22. And we want to be able to sell product there. So that's why I'm here. We currently have a layout of how we would change. You know, we have a standing structure right now that's the barn that we would absolutely have to have water, so we would have to put in a separate septic system and water, a well rather, and we're looking at starting with simply chicken, poultry, turkey. And so we would need a cleaning area to clean the eggs, and we would turn part of that barn into the store to sell product.
Great idea. So what do you call the barn?
What do I call the barn?
I mean, where is it?
So
I'm kind of familiar with your property since I drive by it
yeah,
at least twice a day.
so,
It's the one where the gun shop is.
Okay, in the back.
In the
One
back,
you built, one you recently built in
yeah.
the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. And so what we would do is, obviously have that, as, like I said, the store, the front part of it, and then we'd also have to the left of it, which is enclosed, the cleaning area, for the eggs and crating and so
How
forth.
many people?
In terms of the farmers,
Yeah, employees, whatever you want to call them.
I haven't got that far. I don't really know how many we would have.
Place in Hillsborough.
Yeah, so there's a place in.
New England Farmstead?
Yeah, there
We're
is.
using that as kind of the concept.
Yeah.
Is this on? So smaller.
Excuse
scale.
me, if one of you is going to talk, you need to
Yeah.
come up here and do it, not
I'll
from
let
the
her
audience.
talk then.
Yeah, so to add what he was saying, we're trying to kind of model it after the farmstead, however, smaller scale. They have a variety of animals. They have residents there that live there. So I haven't got that far in terms of how I would, how many resources I would need to run this. So I haven't got that far.
I just want to make sure I understand this. You're not just running a farm. What you want to do is go into the business of caring for disabled people. Is that correct?
Not caring. It would essentially be a place of employment for them, where they can go and be productive members of society.
Would they pay you for the privilege, or would you be paying
We
them?
would be paying them. So it would be just like, a job for them.
Would they be living with you?
No, not residential. This is purely a place of employment.
And what kind of are these physically or mentally disabled people?
Autistic. So they would be
Autistic.
adults, specifically adults with autism. And to get even more specific than that, they would have to be on the spectrum between a 1 and a 2. So very high functioning. They'd have to be over the age of 22, and they'd have to be accompanied by an adult. So many of them qualify for overseers that are provided by the state, and they would have to be provided that to be able to work on the farm. So raise product of turkey, chickens, and hot houses. So I'd have hot houses of gardens where they'd also raise vegetables that we would sell, and it would be limited to that.
So your employees would have somebody with them, each
Yeah.
one of them?
Yep.
Would they work there too?
No, they're just, when you have an autistic child and/or adult, especially high functioning, They can do many things, but they always need oversight. You know, they kind of need that person to guide them, to, you know, facilitate whatever task they're working on. My oldest son is autistic. He's 16. He's about to turn 17. So I'm very familiar with, you know, what's needed and the requirements.
You know, I have a nephew who's autistic, he just graduated from Purdue
Oh, yeah. Okay.
with a chemistry degree.
Okay.
So I can I know what you mean. He's very bright in that stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that they can.
Trust me.
There's a lot of things that they can do for sure, you know, and I got the idea initially by what I saw Liam can do around our small hobby farm.
Yeah.
And I said, what a shame, you know, a lot of these adults are tucked away in an apartment somewhere where they're lucky if they get out for an hour a day for their walk.
Yep.
They can do so much more than that with, you know, certainly some oversight.
Well, you're zoned rural agricultural, right?
It's under Article 17.3.2.
Correct.
1732.
It's under the summary.
So, there's a permitted use in the district that says, agriculture, including grazing, care, and keeping of livestock such as cows, goats, horses, pigs, and poultry, as a gainful business. So, you would be operating this as a business intending to make a profit.
Correct.
This is not just, let's call it a service for autistic folks. This is a business which happens intentionally to hire autistic folks as labor.
Correct.
Would you be paying minimum wage?
At least.
No, doesn't matter, you get farm wages too. She could qualify for them, sure.
Really? I didn't know we had such a thing.
Farm wages?
They hire a law.
Could you give me an example? A minimum wage in New Hampshire is $7.25 an hour.
Yeah.
What is the farm wage?
Well, maybe dating myself, but I thought there was also farm wages in New Hampshire that were
I don't know.
a little lower than minimum wage.
Do the farm wages tend to be higher than minimum wage?
No, other way around.
Okay.
But, I mean, if you're hiring people, we don't really care if they're
Well,
autistic or not, it doesn't matter to us.
The only problem would be is if this turns out to be a care center for autistic people using farming as a mechanism for providing services for
Well, that's
them.
not what she's representing, though.
That's very different from what you told us.
Right.
The way she's explaining this to me is they're gonna have a farm with turkeys and chickens, some hothouse farm, and just so happens they're gonna be hiring autistic adults.
Right.
That's
They're
fine.
gonna be accompanied by, so in that case, they don't even need a site plan, in my opinion.
I agree, but I think it's possible that this may evolve over time to something that is not permitted
Well-
in this district.
Well, I realize that if it were to evolve and it would come more than that, I'd have to come before the
Yeah.
board again, certainly, because to your point, long-term, I would like it to become a residential community as well, where my family moves out. And the entire farm home that it is, I would like it eventually to become a residential property. That's a whole different, you know, requirement that's needed. I've visited so many between New Hampshire and Massachusetts already, and the requirements are substantial. And that's not my initial request here. It's not going to be that, nor would it be a care facility. It would be just as I represented it.
Because that is not allowed in this district. You would have to get a variance of some sort.
You're saying if it was residential?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct, okay. Well, if it's not allowed, then it's not something I could do long-term.
No, but what I'm trying to do is to establish what the parameters are so that things may evolve, but you understand where you cannot go and where you can go and still be operating in accordance with the zoning ordinance.
Correct. I'm fully aware that I could not have it as a care center, therapeutical, and/or residential at this time.
Right, without a variance.
Not at all.
Right.
That's not at all what I'm asking.
Can I ask a question?
You're not a citizen or even a member of the board.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you may.
But as code enforcement,
Oh, that's a
can I
good
ask
point. You
question?
are. Okay, yes, you can.
Would this be 3 businesses? Would this be gun shop, bed and breakfast, and agricultural? Oh, it doesn't exist?
So you're still gonna have the gun shop?
Yeah, the gunsmith shop, yeah, the plan is.
That's an existing home-based business, am I correct?
It's in the barn, but yes.
Yes.
I still don't see a problem.
Never me either.
So your only question is it,
Does she need a site plan?
Yeah, do I need a?
you need to come before the board for any purpose if the only thing you're proposing is to operate a farm, which you're telling us, although it's really not relevant as far as we're concerned, will be hiring autistic people as laborers.
That and to sell product. Do I need a specific site plan in order to sell
What's the
product
scope of work?
from the property?
These products will be products that are raised on the property.
Correct.
It's not that you're going to be importing things and selling it.
No,
And when you say products, you're talking about
Scope of work,
agricultural products raised on the property.
correct.
Where are you?
site plan.
Yeah, but would they be,
Yeah, but I think you can do
why
that.
couldn't they take
Write
other
the farm thing in there without,
Yes, there is. There's something specifically in the statute.
I know.
Yeah.
Page 5?
Page 5 under the site plan, under scope of review, one of the first ones is any change of use, site or structure. Expansion of the site,
Oh, man.
modifications.
Kelly has a good point.
What's that?
In the site plan regulations, under scope of review,
Page?
Page
5.
5.
Any change in use of a site or structure when such change is materially or substantially different from the previous use, such as there is significant effect on the quantitative or qualitative requirements of these regulations or the zoning ordinance. Says there is qualitative or quantitative.
I was trying to find the right to farm thing in this RSA book to see what that,
You saw it in our zoning, right?
We have it in our zoning, one of the first 3 pages of
Page-
the
page 10.
provisions. Yeah,
Page 10 of the zoning, 3.11.1, right to farm.
but the right to farm would not be in a business. It doesn't become allowed until you get to the rural section.
I've said all along, if we're gonna have a farmer come in here to change, to
The right
change
to farm shall include the right to use land for grazing. You're not proposing to expand the barn.
No. Nope.
Will you have to construct any new facilities?
Do you consider
outside the building.
like a well?
oh,
Would,
like a farm stand, like it's, like a place you're gonna sell stuff at or anything, or?
like, would we, next to the structure, the barn, as I mentioned, if we need a water source,
That doesn't count.
that doesn't count, okay.
No, like a little farm stand or anything.
No, the only new structures, if you consider chicken coops, we were talking about maybe having them on wheels, mobile coops.
You walk behind your car and drive down the road, what do you?
No, chicken tractors. Yeah, I don't know what they're
Chicken-powered?
called or,
Okay.
yeah, but no, that
I-
would be it.
How close are you to your neighbors?
We have one individual, if you're facing the house on the right-hand side, I don't know how far, do you think?
See?
How-
Is this physical house from our home or from where the barn would be?
Barn.
Oh, geez.
75 yards.
Question that arises would be whether or not any odors or noise would adversely affect your neighbor.
Well-
I get plenty of odors and noise from his house and his junkyard in his backyard. so.
Come on up and
No,
talk.
I don't think so.
It's turkey and chicken, I mean, I don't.
Well, they
know.
would be in a field which is probably further. The barn itself is 75 yards from it, but the animals would be in a field that goes up Flanders Memorial, which is probably a good 150 yards from it,
Yeah.
or 100 yards. Here.
There's the site.
I mean, this
Helpful to see the site.
too here. Any new establishment, reestablishment of been, are subject to building permit, site plan
Barn,
review, or other land
neighbor.
use, water approval, and that goes into it.
Whoops.
Scale here.
Yeah. Barn, neighbor's house is right about there. There's our home, his house is right about here. That's where the barn is. Animals would be up here.
That's where the chicken coops would be, the turkey coops,
here.
including in the winter.
Yep. And then possibly in the back.
They're right about here.
So, yeah, right in here. Yeah, you're right. Where they
The
are
hill
currently.
comes
Where they-
down.
Yeah, right about there.
How many people would be employed, roughly?
Like I said, I haven't got that far in terms of knowing the number of people required.
Is there a parking issue here for employees coming in to work during the day plus with their
I'm gonna go back
caretakers?
to the fact it's a farm, and I hate to even think that we're gonna have a farmer come in here for a site plan if he wants to build another barn.
No, but she's proposing to take in,
She's proposing to raise chickens and turkeys and.
right, but
have a lot of-
but she's told us that she's taking in a number, and she doesn't know how many at this point, a number of employees. If she takes in
So-
10 or
so
20 of
somebody- So if a
these,
farmer's gonna build a barn, you don't think he's gonna hire somebody to help put the hay in the hay mound?
one or two people is one thing, 10 or 20 people, this is on Memorial Drive, right?
Yeah, Flanders Memorial.
Is it not retail? I thought it was retail.
What?
Could I go by there and buy products?
Yes.
There are two things that are happening that would increase traffic. Number one, she's got a farm stand, so people are going to be coming back and forth to buy produce.
Right.
And secondly, she's hiring a number of people as labor. Okay. I'm just trying to understand this and whether or not any of our regulations are affected so that we can make sure that whatever is decided is done in accordance with the rules. That's all.
I understand that. I hope we don't have to do anything.
Yeah, but until they come back, we really won't know the answers to these things, apparently.
Yeah, because you can have, what, 3 non-family members, employees? Is that what it is?
As a practical matter, if you have 10 people, where would these 10 cars be parked? Do you have a place for it off the road?
Yeah, there's a second driveway, so there's our main driveway to the house, and then there's a second driveway, if you wanna show them on the map, that goes to the barn up and back.
So there's no problem with parking?
No,
I think well off the street.
I think
No,
the
well
barn might
off
be
the
further
street.
back, too.
We could use a little bit more law enforcement enforcing the speed limit on that road, but that's not this place to decide that.
well, yeah. So we have the space for certainly parking. I guess it would be a question of how much space is required for each car. I don't know what the
Yeah.
requirement would be.
10 by 20.
Under scope of review, the last item, I'm on page 5, last item, if a change of use or expansion involves significant impact in terms of traffic, circulation, parking, or lighting.
I don't doubt that we have the right to ask them for a full site plan if we want to.
The only advantage would be that neighbors could come in and express their concerns if there are any. The concern is that, my concern is that this is an operation that's starting small, and I would agree with you, that if it were really small, there's no site plan review necessary. But she's also been very clear that she expects this to expand because she wants to take in a decent number, and I don't know what that is, and she doesn't at this point, of folks, both to help as farm labor and also to benefit them, obviously. And that will create more produce, presumably, more activity on the road in terms of employee traffic and customer traffic. So, at this stage, I would agree with you. It seems like a no-brainer to say, good luck and so forth. But I'm concerned that because it's not specific, that it could grow
Okay.
over time to be an issue for some neighbors, that's all.
So would the autistic people, employees, be driving, or would they,
No, they don't drive.
that's what I was gonna say, okay.
Yeah,
So theoretically, if you had 5 autistic people working on the farm, you'd have 5 people with them, so you'd have 10 people working and 5 cars.
correct. Yeah, most of the adults with autism in that range, they don't drive.
Right.
And that's part of what their overseer's responsibility is to take them to and from an employment, go grocery shopping, help do errands. And so that would be the approximate number of vehicles per person.
Craig,
And-
So what if we asked, will there be more than 5
Um,
in the first couple of years?
I would say to get started, realistically, it would be at least 5 people. And then I could see it potentially growing to 10, realistically,
Okay. So now we need to park 10 cars.
correct?
why don't we say that at this point, up to 5 employees would not require a site plan review, and anything over that would? Or some number.
5 seems like I'm gonna leave that up to them a little bit, but I don't think significant impact in terms of traffic circulation, that kind of thing, with 5 cars parking there. Well, I don't think 5 cars is significant, put it that way.
I agree, and my point is that if if it turns out that she wants to expand it, and it turns out that you're right, 5 cars don't make a difference, there's no problem with the neighbors, the farm stand is successful, but it's not creating undue traffic, then you could basically say, when she comes back and says, we'd really want to go from 5 to 10, you could say, that's fine.
And that, yeah, or let's think about some parking areas or something.
Right.
What's everybody else think?
That's fine. Now,
Mr. Truss?
when you go to sell, it's just like farm stand type thing, people pull in, get their eggs and leave, I mean,
Correct.
you're not giving tours and all that kind of thing, it's,
No,
okay.
nope.
I would say, having farmed most of my life, that to keep 5 people busy would be a real,
Yeah, I know, yeah,
real
that's,
farm.
yeah,
That's what I was saying, you're really keeping 10 people busy.
So,
5 autistic people,
luck.
5 people with them.
Yeah, but the 5 people with them are only busy to make sure the autistic people
Well-
are doing what they're supposed to do.
Sure.
They're not, I don't think the overseers, as you call them, are going to be productive farm labor.
No, they just assist. You know, they assist in, if you're given a task, they assist them in making sure that that task is being done safely. You know, that it's basically, think of it as an aid. It's really an aid to support them in accomplishing their task.
Personally, I'm delighted to see you doing something like this. I think it's a wonderful thing both for you and also for the town,
Yeah.
as well as the larger community.
Because, you know, our son is about to age out of the system, right at 22, and he goes to school in Mass. And, you know, I think that when I start to look around at what's out there, there's very little. And he's really the first generation where, you know, 1 in 88 boys in this entire country was diagnosed with some form of autism. And there's not much out there for him. And I'm not looking to benefit from this. I'm looking to have my son, first and foremost, and anybody else in the community benefit from this. So, you know, this is why it's near and dear to my heart, and I'd like to start with the agriculture. And, you know, when I compare it to other farms that I have toured, they do more than that. They do knitting, you know, they'll make product as well that they can also sell at the farm stand. And You know, it just, they have goals, is like they've had all through their school years, and it just kind of continues into their adult life. So there's a real need, and I'd like to see it happen
Would this be year-round for these folks?
year-round.
What would you, is the barn heated?
So, right now, it is partly heated. We would definitely have to expand that, to increase that heating, because obviously if we're doing poultry, we would need to give them heat through the winter.
Do you see this as 7 days a week for these folks?
No, I see it Monday through Friday, not the weekends. No. Nope.
Doesn't that
Have
mean,
greenhouses, or? is that
I would,
what?
I would have hot houses is what I'd have. Yep.
you and your husband are taking on the work of, let's see, 7 people for 2 days? Good luck.
Well, when you have 4 kids and you're working and traveling around the world, as I have for 25 years, this is a drop in the bucket for me. I'm used to, I was in Brazil last week and about to go to the Netherlands. I'm not afraid of taking on responsibility. I have my whole working career and raising a family. But if we don't pave the trail, no one will.
Are the kids going to age out of service at home?
22.
No, I don't mean your autistic son, the other children.
They're not autistic.
But, I thought you said they were going to help out as employees.
No, my other children?
Yeah.
They're slave labor, I think.
They have to earn their keep somehow.
Got it, okay.
I'm suggesting they have less than 5 employees, they would not have significant impact on the traffic and don't need a site plan.
I agree.
Bruce?
Yeah, that's fine.
Chuck?
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good.
All right, thank
Good
you.
luck.
Thank you very much.
He means less than 6, 5 or
Yeah.
fewer.
5 or fewer.
What is this back here?
Oh, that's actually another pasture.
Outside tent fire area.
Oh, the test fire? Yeah, that was
Oh,
approved.
the
that
gunsmith.
kind of fire.
Yeah, that was,
okay.
that was a part of the,
Confused me there for a moment.
that was a part of the business that we had to
Yes, that's
have.
where you shot myself in the
So
minute.
anything more than 5, they come back for a site
Yes.
plan?
Yes.
So was there anything that we need to sign or, okay, right?
Not as far as I'm concerned. Kelly might want you to sign your life away, but I don't care. Second item on the agenda is a conceptual discussion for Nicole Shapiro for a property in South Stark Highway for mixed use on,
Before we start that, may I assume that my secretarial duties have been superseded by our...
Yes.
Yes, and I will write up, because this is
Well,
my
not, she
own...
can take it.
No,
No,
I will write it up and send it to you.
No, no, that's
That's
not,
fine.
that's not necessary.
Plus she has a summary, but that's my yellow pad.
She was
Oh,
supposed
you
to
want the
add back.
pad?
She wants a color printer, that's what she really
I really want to color printed, don't I?
well, everybody's sucking up the color printer.
Do you need my notes?
Sure, I'll take them. Thank you. Unless
Okay,
you don't. No, I don't need them.
okay.
Give it to her anyway. You don't-
No, I'm gonna write up something and send it to her, just to make sure that we heard the same thing. Okay,
They'll send it. Because there was a-
Yes, sir,
Can
ma'am.
I just look at them? Can I just take a picture?
You must be Nicole.
Yes, I'm Nicole Shapiro. This is my husband, Matthew Shapiro. We're looking to start a doggy daycare. We purchased the commercial lot back in December. So I've been back and forth with Kelly to find out what use to put the doggy daycare under.
where is this located exactly?
It's
You
right,
know where Renshaw Road is?
Yes,
If you're coming up the hill, there's Renshaw Road, there's Mark Phillips Automotive,
Yep.
Renshaw Road. There's that little apartment,
building, yep.
and there's that one open house lot that's been right here, and there's another mobile home on the other side of it. It's right in between the two.
So this is not on the same site as that apartment
it
commercial
is.
building?
It's right abuts it.
You know, but it's not part of that. It's a
Nope.
separate legal lot.
Yep.
How many acres?
It's
Just about 3/4 of an
0.76.
acre.
3/4 of an acre, and
Yeah.
there are no structures on it now?
Nope.
And what's your proposal?
We're gonna put an 80 by 20 building there.
A commercial building?
Yep.
Yep.
A
Okay.
Morton steel building is the plan.
Okay.
It's an apartment.
Well, had questions about mixed use. There's a bunch of,
So I thought about
Businesses.
moving my office to my welding company there instead of down in Industrial Park and Ware.
When you say mixed use, though, it's not really mixed use. You're just having several commercial uses on it.
Well,
Yeah, we'd humor the idea of putting an apartment above it, off to one side of it.
That's mixed use.
Right, that's why we're here.
If it were just for the two commercial uses, that's
just
very
commercial.
different.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many acres is it? 0.75, you said?
Yeah, 0.76.
We have a site plan that was proposed for 2 doctor's offices at one point when we bought it. We wanted to see it.
Sure.
They might have got a copy in their packet.
We did.
Did you get a packet or just a summary?
It also came with a septic design and the driveway permit.
How big a building did you say? 5,000?
20 by 80?
20 by 80.
It's actually 30 by 80.
30 by
30 by
80?
80, yeah. This is what Morton has kind of designed a little bit. Obviously, windows and doors would change, but it'd be something similar to this.
See that septic design? I guess the question for the board is the mixed use, is the apartment allowed?
Well, it already is.
Well, there is a bunch of.
Yeah, we have a bunch of places in town that already have
yeah.
commercial, but apartments above them. Several on the same
But-
road, right on 114.
But some of them may be grandfathered. They were put in place before zoning was passed or before this article was passed, so that's not necessarily indicative of what would apply to your lot.
I don't know. Who was Palmer's then? Palmer's Tavern, who was that then? Before me.
No idea.
I can't imagine it was more than 15 years ago it was being built around.
No.
Well, you are allowed a boarding or rooming house, hotel, tourist quarter homes, including cabins, motels, and accessory instructions.
Me and Kelly were going back and forth if it's that or,
Looking at 2410, saying non-permitted uses residential homes.
Yep, I see that one too.
okay. And then back at 24.3.1, it also says any use permitted in the residential or rural districts
Yeah.
is permitted.
Yes, but that's overridden, I think, by 2410.
As far as a
There's a
residential
conflict, the
home.
more restrictive prevails.
And I was interpreting that as residential, single-family home, not an apartment with a business.
These are all statutes to go off of, correct?
Yeah,
So if this one's on here and one behind it supersedes the first one,
No, there's a provision in this, in the,
Well, the definition of a residential home is a one or two family dwelling.
Yeah. And the difference of a home occupation and home business is that the home business has to be incidental to the home. So I was saying residential homes in a commercial district is like a single-family home. 75% of it can be home, but 25 can be a business. In this case, it's half and half.
so you're saying that it would be legitimate on this lot to have the 30 by 80 building for commercial purposes and another building in the back for apartments?
No,
And
no,
that-
no.
No, no, no.
It's all in the same building.
same building.
I understand that.
Oh,
I
It's-
was interpreting residential home as a single-family home. Those words to me mean single-family home. And then if you go to the residential where it says home occupation and home business, if you read that, your business has to be incidental to your home. Which
What's-
means, which means your residential home has to be 75% of home, and 25% can be business, to have a home business. In this case, it's not a home
What
business or
size
a
is the
home
apartment gonna be?
occupation.
We didn't even go that far because we had to go jump through this hurdle before we went.
Yeah, how many, 1,000 square feet?
Yeah, like a studio apartment maybe.
Maybe not even 1,000 square feet. maybe
Yeah.
like 750?
Right. I mean, the same token too. If it's a doggy daycare, who's gonna want to live above a doggy daycare? So the whole idea of it, you know, we might not even do anyways. It's just I want to use as much of the space there as I can, and put it to use.
Forget this application for a moment, but the same lot. They want to do a commercial business in a commercial structure, and separately, an apartment building, 10 apartments or 5 apartments. Are you saying that that's allowed?
You couldn't on this lot anyways. The septic's not big enough. The well's not
He's
big
just
enough.
saying-
No, we're just talking
No,
hypothetically.
I'm trying to understand what the ordinance is. So why,
No, they can't have.
why not?
They can't have multifamily on that size lot. You're talking 5 or 10 apartments in a
Right.
building, not on that lot, no.
Because
It's only 0.76 acres.
No. it's
Okay.
25 acres.
Okay.
Okay? It's in the commercial zone. Can they have on the same lot a 5-unit apartment building as well as a very large or 20 by 80-foot commercial building?
I'm confused. What's that have to do with this lot?
Nothing.
What's 25 acre lot have to do with a 3/4 acre lot?
Because
A lot.
I'm trying to draw out an understanding of what the restrictions are. And in order to do that, I need to understand what is allowed in this zone. Not on this lot, but in this zone.
I think,
Then we can apply that to this lot.
isn't there another provision that says only one principal use on a lot?
Yes,
Okay, so you'd have to.
that's where I was gonna go.
You would have to go with that, because you also have a provision at the beginning that says whatever is most stringent would apply.
Right.
So if the residential apartments were going to be on that lot, it would need a special exception or a variance. If
And-
just a business was gonna be there, that would be okay.
And now, because they're proposing a mixed use, now let's assume the same large lot, so that's not the issue. But they're proposing a single building with both apartments and a business. Is that allowed?
Well, that's what I'm asking, because I think it's mixed use and I think it should be allowed. But you don't have it in your ordinance, mixed use. So then you have to go individual occupant.
Just like the building that abuts this lot is, it used to be the thrift shop, so it used to be an ice cream shop at one point, and it has multi-apartments in it, in the same building.
Yes,
That's right next door to it.
right.
Is that grandfathered, do you know?
I don't know, but
I've been there as long as I've been here.
Part of it is.
Yeah.
See, I'm having a hard time interpreting mixed use, because you can go back and forth on individual descriptions of uses, where it doesn't, most towns have right in it, mixed use with a definition. You don't define mixed use.
let's just check that.
The only time you have a mixed use allowed is where you're talking about home business and home occupation. But the owners are not gonna live here.
My
This is not
guess,
gonna be owner
my
occupied.
interpretation right now is no, it's not.
The mixed
is
use
it-
is not allowed?
Because I'm assuming that we've been saying all along for eons now that if it's not listed as permitted, then it's not permitted.
Right.
And I don't see his apartment being permitted. The only thing close is a boarding or rooming house, hotel, tennis, tourist court, not tennis court.
We read that. We did.
Yeah, cabins, motels, accessories, that's the closest thing you got, and that's not an apartment.
I couldn't see it fitting. Nicole and I read that too.
Yeah, I don't, it doesn't fit.
I think the best bet is 2 commercial businesses, but they wanted to ask about mixed-use apartments.
I think the 2 commercial businesses, no problem.
Right.
I don't think.
I was just
don't
wondering,
think-
because there's other buildings, like I said,
Yeah,
the one
but
that's
unless
abuts us
doing some
is,
history research, we'd have to find out if those were already grandfathered, or if they went through another variance or special exception.
Well, the one down by Renshaw Road's been here for a long time, is a mixed use.
but then the
But the
Stark
Stark
House.
House is
Yeah, I don't know when that was approved.
12, 13 years old maybe.
Well,
if that.
I was gonna say under 15 years, I believe. but-
When
You
would-
could have gone through a variance, which you have that right to appeal for
When,
a
when,
variance.
when did you say Duck Pond was approved? 2005?
Duck Pond was
2005 or
2003, and then 5 and 6, and then,
That's when I joined the board, so it was before that.
and we adopted zoning in 88.
But I don't recall if this article was amended since it was
Right.
Oh, it
adopted.
was.
It was, it definitely was.
Yeah,
Was,
so
that
you-
was amended in,
There's a lot of research and history you'd have to do. to
Several
find out.
times.
that was added on in,
I know the non-permitted.
probably 98,
The non-permitted.
2000, somewhere around there,
Which one?
that 2410,
2410?
yeah,
No residential homes?
yeah.
And was the intent, because you always go back to the intent, when you do in code enforcement, you have to go back to the intent. Was your intent to not allow apartments in the commercial district?
Well,
It's not a
The
home.
intent was not to allow a residential
the
home.
the intent was to not have houses in the commercial
Yeah, I was gonna say, it
district.
says residential home.
It's
It
not a
doesn't-
home, it's an apartment.
Right.
It's a
But-
total difference.
So that's how I interpret it.
but
I don't
there-
interpret it as an apartment.
But it's a residence,
Yes.
regardless of whether it's an apartment or a two-family or a single-family, it's a residence. And so the question is, are residences allowed?
Well, like I said before, we've been to the point where it's, if it's not listed as permitted, we have to assume it's not permitted. And it's not listed as permitted.
But the argument that they're making is that it is listed as permitted
It is.
because it says 24.3.1, any use permitted in the residential and rural agricultural district, and the residential district says single and two-family dwellings, not that, cluster housing, not that. So it's not allowed, what they're proposing is not allowed in the residential district, I think. And in the rural agricultural district, it says single and two-family dwellings, attached garages, and other similar structures. It doesn't say anything about apartments, because it's specific about two-family dwellings there,
Right.
and single and two-family dwellings in residential. And then, at the end of 24, it says residential homes. Well, you can, as you might say, interpret a home to be a single-family home, or you can interpret a home to be any place where a person would dwell, which would include a cluster, an apartment, a condo, a multifamily, anything.
Yes, but then you got on page 21, you got 14.2, parentheses 2, where condominiums, duplex, or multifamily housing is proposed. The requirements of table 1.1 shall apply for each dwelling unit. Basically, it's for a density calculation. So you almost have to assume that a multifamily housing, which would be, could be apartments or condominiums, is allowed if you're gonna have a density requirement.
Yeah, and that lot won't meet,
It's not gonna meet the density.
won't even
requirement
come
for-
close to meeting density for anything for residential uses.
Well, your definition of residential home is 1 and 2 family. So a
Well,
residential
I'm-
home to me
I'm-
is
I'm
not an
saying- I'm
apartment.
saying that.
He's saying that even if a residential home is allowed
if you
in the
go-
district,
Oh, yeah,
If you go to
on this lot,
Yeah.
is it allowed?
14.2, parentheses 2, says you have to use table 1 for your density.
Right,
The minimum lot size is 84,000 square feet.
on a non-conforming lot, though.
Well, they're gonna put a, yeah, okay,
It's a non-conforming lot.
I'm not sure you're gonna have the,
I know.
there's a lot of hurdles you
Let's
have
not
to.
go that way,
You got hurdles besides us to go through too, because you got,
if you
two
put a
business-
home there.
no, you got those commercial septic design and a residential septic design on a .76 acre lot with a 75-foot well radius. It doesn't count towards your lot sizing.
Yeah, I haven't even done the impervious
That's a
or
total different,
percentage of a lot.
I don't know if it's gonna work that way either.
Okay, so for commercial, for the doggy daycare, we were also going back and forth what it would be listed under. I was thinking under where it says retail and service establishment, because it's a service to people. There was something that said about kennels, but it's really not a kennel, so,
Kennel had a definition of commercial boarding.
Yes.
So if you're not breeding, you still can do commercial boarding.
Hold it, that's in the definition section?
Yes, definition, chapter 4, under kennel.
Is doggy daycare boarding?
I will not be overnight boarding, it would just be during business hours.
So
during
it's
day.
not boarding? So that's not a kennel.
But I didn't know what else to,
Right, we were going back and forth on how to classify it.
so is it a service under
Well,
services?
If they're not staying over.
You put it under a service?
If the question is whether this is allowed or not, I mean, it's clearly a commercial activity. And, I mean, we may not have listed specifically, because nobody perhaps was thinking about doggy daycare at the time this was written. It's not specifically listed. But I think you're right, under 2435, it says retail and service establishments. This is a
Right.
service.
Right,
Okay.
we listed that.
It's not listed, but because it says including, but not limited to.
And it says similar uses at the end.
Right.
Yeah,
I still,
it was vague, but we
Bruce, can
did
you
it.
pass down that septic design?
I'm sorry?
I have one too.
And welding is clearly, are
It
you
would be
going?
my office, it wouldn't be, the shop is on B&B Lane.
Okay, and.
Yeah,
what
the
about-
office is.
I would just put my office
Is
over
the
there to
office
get
a
away from the
problem?
shop.
No.
No, no, because we allowed that on, for that logging company on South
Sugar
Road.
Hill.
Sugar Hill Road
Yeah.
South.
Yeah, I don't think,
That's not an issue. It says on 2436, office establishments.
you're right. So I
Okay,
guess for the doggy daycare in the office, you're fine.
Yeah,
okay.
okay, good deal. The only reason we thought the apartment above is because it's a proposed with septic design, everything for a doctor's office. So a doctor's office is gonna have more than one bathroom and. so
Well, that's your problem,
We were
because
just trying to utilize as much space as we could,
this
you know?
septic design says the site is capable of treating 546 gallons per day,
Yeah, and, Thomas Carr actually called the state to ask him how many,
excluding the well radius and
yeah.
and excluding the well radii and wetland. The site contains 0.39 acres of Group 2 soils on sea slopes.
So what's-
This site is capable of treating 546 gallons per day. Proposed daily flow is 500.
Yeah,
But
I
you-
had
you'll
spoke
never
to
be-
Thomas.
You won't be
Carr.
anywhere near 500 with what you're proposing.
No,
No.
he said you could do a doggy
You'll be-
daycare and a 2-bedroom apartment and still be under the 500.
Yeah, I mean, what you're
That's
doing
why
is gonna be minimum size, it'll be 300.
Right,
What size building can
Yeah.
they fit on it though?
so it should take
Matter of
the
the use of
apartment,
the
as
building for the
long
septic
as we
design.
could do it, it could take
No,
the
no, I
apartment
meant
and
that you were
the
looking
doggy
at the-
daycare, no problem.
The building on there, I think, is 80 by like 28.
Yeah.
He's redoing it, he just went out there and surveyed it again
I
to
think you
make
cover
sure.
30, you can cover 30% of your lot.
30 in the commercial?
30.
It says no more than 50%
Or 50%.
can be occupied. So, you said 30 by 80, that's 24. And the lot is how big?
0.76 acres, but
0.76
we aren't gonna be able to do the calculation. Well, the building's nowhere near 50%.
3/4 is 40, no, is
No, that includes your septic and
44,000,
your driveway.
well, 43,000.
How do you
Let's
handle?
look at this map, it's not gonna be anywhere near 50%.
Put that in the septic system, do you?
No,
No.
you'd pick it up, and
Pick
it
it
would
up.
pretty much go in your trash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the dumpster?
pretty much, yeah.
Driveway.
No different than putting a dirty diaper in there, right?
No, I got no problem with it.
Okay.
I think they're fine for the,
I don't think they can do the apartment, but
I
I
don't
think
think they
everything
can
else
do
is
the
fine.
apartment, but I think they're fine for the doggy,
Oh,
for the
yeah.
doggy daycare and the
Office.
welding office.
I was just
And
curious.
frankly, you could make that building larger if you wished, and
But this, it's kinda gonna screw up for the parking and you still have to have, we're gonna have, storefronts. If you show the picture of the building she put, we're gonna have a storefront. It's gonna, kinda like that place in Hooksville, they'll have storefronts. Maybe there'll be
Couple parking.
maybe there'll be 3 or 4 businesses in there, and you could have parking, so I can't really make the building any bigger without causing a site work nightmare,
oh,
because the lot kind of slopes off, and the grade's gotta come up, and,
Once they define the use, they still have to come back in for a site plan for a
Oh, yeah,
commercial, so.
yes.
He'll have that,
You get
that plan.
Possible traffic circulation issues.
Right,
all
but
kinds of
before
things.
they went
Yes.
any further, they wanted to make sure, before they spent any more money on a septic design, for what type of use.
What is the next step for us then?
Apply for a site
Sure.
plan,
Okay.
building permit, site plan. so.
How many dogs would a building that size take in doggy daycare?
Hey, it's already 8 o'clock, let's go.
Yeah,
No apartment, but we like the doggy day idea.
And the colored pictures are yours too.
Yeah.
Save them, because we'll need them for the
Yeah,
building
I think,
permit.
I think there's gonna be a big demand for that service.
I hope so too.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
No, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a continuation of change use site plan for Whitetail Commercial Development. It's the phasing plan for the parcel down on Whitetail Lane, and Riverdale Road, and Oil Mill, and all those kind of good things. Evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Bob Carey here for Whitetail Commercial Development.
Bob Carey.
Yep, I was here 2 years ago, August 23rd, I think, 2018, when this was initially approved, the site plan was approved. So it's good to be back. It was August
back.
was a little warmer in this room than it is right now, but, so I'm here with Mike and Dahlberg, and I'm just I think there were a couple, this is a continuation of a hearing, and what we want to do is to have phased development. And we would, in order to do that, we would have to change the condominium documents, amend them, so that you have 4 proposed buildings in the sort of southern part of the property. And as each one is built, those condominium units get converted into the condominium, go one after another. The condominium amended declaration was submitted to the town. It was, the town's lawyer gave input. We made all those changes, and I confirmed with town's council, Attorney Spector Morgan, that all the declaration, condominium declaration, was all set. It was fine. The second part of it is to, Mike has submitted a amended condominium site plan that just shows you've got phase 1 up here and phase 2 here, just so that the visual matches what the condominium documents say. It's 2 very minor changes. They're not significant in terms of their impact. It doesn't change any of the calculations, drainage, construction, nothing. And as this board knows, the Whitetail development would have 5 years to complete the project anyway, so phasing doesn't impact the time frame that it would have to complete the project.
You mean it would still have to complete it within 5 years?
It would, or have that time frame extended
How, by right, or,
by request. 5 years is by right. But if, say you're in the middle of a project and you say, gee, I need 3 more months just to finish this one part of it, the process would be to go before this board and say, here's what we're doing, we just need a little bit more time to finish.
and wouldn't it be prudent to come to the board before that happens?
Certainly would be.
So what are you proposing to build in phase, before the first CO in phase 2?
There are already 2 structures already on phase 1.
Forget phase 1.
And I think phase two, they're trying to figure out where to start. And I think the idea would be to build 1 structure and then see how it works economically, where the economy is, and can you afford to build a 2nd structure, and then sort of proceed that way, a prudent way, any business.
What improvements other than the building are you gonna build before you get a first CO? That's my question.
Mike?
You guys knew I was gonna go there. Yes, I understand, you're back and so forth.
They would have to build the access road to the, probably gonna be the first building on the right or one on the left.
Makes sense.
Pave the access road to that, the paved area that you need for two-way travel around the building and the assigned parking, leach field, drainage. The detention basin is installed, the first couple of runs of drain pipe, the main line are installed. The leach field is installed, and they're running the first line, two, we saved a couple manholes last week, for the sewer and the well, and then the landscaping that would be associated with those, that one or two buildings. And I will point out to the board that the landscaping has been bonded per the conditions of approval. So it would be the associated and assigned parking, access road, the detention basin has to be installed per the site-specific permit. Leach field has to be installed, along with the sewer line and the septic tank. The well for each building would have to be installed.
For each building would have to be installed?
Each building has its own well.
And so you're not going to do all of the wells initially, just the well
No,
from building one?
it's
So
a-
let's make an assumption you're gonna try to get a CO and do the first building on the right.
Correct.
Just pull in, I don't care which one it is. You're not gonna drill 4 wells for that one building.
We are not.
Are you gonna pave the entire, for lack of a better term, cul-de-sac?
No. Because we still have to remove gravel. It's a tight site.
Oh,
Let me ask the question a different way.
Unless we removed all the gravel and made a flat pad,
that's what I was assuming.
we can't build all 4 buildings at once. There's just the physical constraints
Well, yes, I understand that part.
prevent that.
Let's assume the first building is up. Now you're going to do the second building. What infrastructure must you do for the second building and again for the third, fourth, and fifth?
Those plans.
The associated drainage around the building,
Around the second building?
yeah, would have to tie into the main drain line.
Okay.
That's already online, and the runoff will be treated. Right, the detention basin is already installed. The leach field is sized for all 4 buildings.
So you don't have to do anything with that? Have to put in the well?
Have to do the well, install the septic tank, and hook that up to the main line.
Paving
and paving.
and
And
landscaping?
landscaping. In the way the buildings are laid out, the landscaping is pretty much particular to each,
Right, that's around the outside of the building.
around the outside of that
No.
structure.
Yeah, but isn't there also some landscaping that's required to shield the neighboring houses
Yeah, it's
from
on
the
the outside of
site?
the edge.
Yes, but the way those are, the planting design is done, it basically goes, there's 4 sections, and they go with one with each building.
Let's make a worst-case scenario.
No, it's not.
You get the plans,
Yeah.
everything's approved, you put up the first building, okay? The economy tanks, and just like we've had 10 years of 10 good years, we now have 10 bad years. The economy never turns around, the permit is no longer valid, and obviously, since he can't make any money, he doesn't come in.
Landscaping is bonded.
Now, the question is, what happens to the homeowners,
They're not homeowners.
the folks who are across the road, who expected all sorts of landscaping and other things to happen? Will the bond cover that or not?
Yes, oh,
You
absolutely.
have the approved plan?
Absolutely. The bond estimate is based on the plantings
All of
that
it.
are on the approved landscape.
And so, would it be possible, since you haven't removed the gravel, you haven't put any new pads on buildings 2, 3, 4, and 5, is it possible to take that money from the bond and put up landscaping, which, in a different environment now, has to provide the same protection that it would have provided had the project gone to completion?
The landscaping isn't gonna go in until the final grading is done.
But in my scenario, and this is not unrealistic, we have a bad period, and in fact, he cannot financially make a profit by building the rest of the buildings. So we have a partially completed project, and,
Call the bond and put the landscaping in.
but the landscaping is designed for a different situation, where the gravel has been removed, the buildings are there, and so
If we don't
forth.
put the buildings up, we don't do the landscaping.
But doesn't that leave the other folks in the lurch? The neighbors?
In lurch for what?
They were expecting a visual screen. They've got
But
nothing.
there's no buildings to screen,
The other problem is you can't pull the bond and use it for something, for a different purpose.
Right.
So the bond really doesn't help.
Of course it does.
Well, yeah, it does.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
it doesn't, it doesn't help in the event that the project doesn't go forward. The neighbors are going to be in a tough position.
No, they're not.
They're not, because
No,
there's nothing
not
to
really.
screen if the buildings aren't there.
And a stripped hill is nothing to screen?
Well,
The purpose of the screening was to screen the buildings, not.
No, it was
No,
not, you're
no,
correct.
Neil, I completely disagree.
Okay, I thought the purpose of the screening was to protect the neighbors. In this case, if the buildings were,
Buildings.
in this case, if the buildings were built, but if the buildings weren't built, aren't they entitled to some screening?
No.
Okay,
okay, let's back up. If I wrote down things right, you said you're gonna build the leach field, the pond, the assigned parking, and at least part of the driveway. FYI, you're gonna have to include a cistern in there someplace.
The cistern has to go in with the first building,
First CO, before the first CO.
before the first CO.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
glad we all agree on that
We're
one.
all on the same page.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Phew. Okay, looking at this approved set, stamped by you and signed by me, somewhere around 95% of the landscaping that is being used for screening purposes is either behind the first building on the right, you drive in, or above the detention pond.
Correct.
So I would assume if we have the leach field done and the detention pond done, that this landscaping could be planted above the detention pond with minimal effort. I'm not gonna say it's, could be done, I'm not saying it has to be ready, but it could be ready with minimal effort. The grading to do that would be
Been
minimal, I
out
would
there
think.
for a while, but I agree, if the detention basin is installed,
If the detention basin is installed per the grading plan, the landscaping appears to be pretty much on the slope of the detention basin.
right,
So therefore, if the basin's done, that landscaping can be done.
yes.
And that is, I don't know how many trees, 17?
Whatever the number.
17 PP, 12-inch OC, whatever in Rhode Island that means. Yeah, it's Colorado Bruce spruce. This would be, one's above the leach field, and 16 of them are between the detention basin and building 2, in the buildings, for the lack of a better term. So therefore, before your first CO, if the basin's built, those 17 trees could be planted.
Yes,
If your first building is building two,
No.
no, proposed building 4,
On the far left.
drive in
When you
on the
drive in,
right.
it's first on the left. That one.
That's
why
the first one?
I got a building permit for that one.
Okay.
I
that's that
don't know
one.
what building you focus on for.
Landscaping for that
On your
one, is it?
plan, it says building CP number 1.
Yes, that's the first building on the left.
Yeah, that's the one the permit's being
Okay.
processed.
And there's no landscaping for that one.
No landscaping for this one?
Nothing back there, because there's nothing, you're landscaping, you're protecting yourself from the rest of phase 1.
Correct.
The only other landscaping
cistern.
really is behind
Yeah.
proposed building 4, between there and Riverdale Road.
Correct.
And obviously that, you're not gonna want to put that in before the building is,
No,
certainly the parking, because that's all on the slope again, that's all on the cut slope.
that whole slope.
Yeah, that's the big cut slope.
And then the other big question is,
We got more big questions?
yeah,
What's
the
that?
center area in the center of all the buildings that isn't designated parking.
Well, that was my question, how are we gonna get a fire truck turned around, if we need to get a fire truck in there?
Make it temporary gravel pad. Like other people do.
When does that get finished, though, that whole center section?
I would imagine,
I would think if you're going per residential subdivision regulations, I know this isn't around a residential subdivision, but you're gonna be able to get a building permit when you're at subgrade, therefore it's quote passable by an emergency vehicle. And it's got to stay that way. Because if somebody's building this building and they get hurt, you gotta get an ambulance out there.
Well, you gotta understand too, though, he's gotta get tractor trailers in there with equipment.
That's true too, so he's gonna be turning around trucks
So
anyway.
they're gonna have to turn around somewhere.
The trucks aren't gonna back up.
Nope, plus the cistern is gonna be in place before the first.
Well,
year.
that's way over there.
That's way,
Not way over.
Well, you can't.
it's over on the lot line on the far side of Phase
It's
One.
over in front of Granite State Plumbing,
Well,
unless you moved it, I didn't know about it.
yeah, but
Yeah, but-
there are 2,200 feet of hose.
Well,
That's not 2,200 feet away.
I don't mean it's that far away, no, but it's,
Okay.
Yeah,
you don't wanna turn a fire truck around the cistern.
Cost area, I don't want anyone to look around the vehicle.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. That is true.
But you gotta understand that a fully loaded concrete truck weighs more than a fire truck. So if those concrete trucks can get in and out safely without collapsing the road, a fire truck can get in and out of there also.
No. I'm not getting it's not going that far away.
Still my plan.
Okay, so theoretically, Phase 2, Unit, Building 1 is gonna be built first. So you're gonna pave the entrance drive and the parking behind the unit, basically.
And it's gonna have to be enough pavement in the front
I would think, at least.
for two vehicles to pass.
Is the access from the parking lot side or from the center section side?
Center section.
Doesn't that require some paving?
That's what I'm saying.
No, I mean, all of it?
No? Look, as a practical matter, if he's gonna sell condo units or even lease them to people, if they can't get in and out, they're not gonna lease them. So obviously, he's gonna have to pave enough, so that the pavement doesn't fall apart, right? If people aren't driving on the edge of it, and then, it needs to function.
I'd feel more comfortable if you defined the areas that were paved with each building. It just define, it doesn't have to be the whole thing, just define the area for each building.
Mike, if the,
You know what I mean?
Fine, you know what, we can do that, make it a condition of approval. please.
Yeah, we can do that. I think we can do that. Speaking for me, I can do
We're
that.
we're starting to get to the point now where we're delaying the construction, and we're just stretching it out. And it's starting to cost money. So we can do that, and what the pavement, you would agree to pave, but it would just slap some dimensions on it, but
Well, I'm just gonna say, if you pave all the limited, I didn't say, pave the limited common area for each building, which is the parking,
yeah,
and you have phase lines on here, the
yeah.
limited common area lines. You have this convertible area thing in the middle.
Well, the whole.
Convertible area
phase
B,
two is convertible.
I mean, convertible area B is the middle between all the buildings.
No, the entire phase two is convertible in,
Yes,
meaning
That-
it's not.
That just happens to be where the text is.
That's the legality of the condominium.
let me rephrase it then, the common area in between all the buildings, which is proposed to be paved eventually. I guess the question is how much of that is gonna be paved?
That's what I'm saying. He
Each
does
unit.
put
'Cause
lines
if
in
you're
there.
gonna pave, if you're gonna pave everything in the back, basically all the parking for each unit, that certainly explains that.
And you have to pave at least enough in the front for two vehicles to pass, that would be a 24-foot.
But that still leaves you a potential big hole in the middle that needs to get done at some point.
Of course.
Yeah, after they're all completed.
But again,
happened-
if he's hauling in concrete trucks and hauling gravel out, he doesn't wanna pave everything he can because he's gonna rip it all up.
No, but
He's gonna have a hard time, he's
No,
gonna have a
no,
hard
I
time maintaining the
understand
access. He's gonna have a hard time maintaining the access road, he's gonna haul very much gravel.
what happens if the project goes downhill to Does that area get paved under the bond or not?
No, no.
The bond is for
We
reclamation.
bond the reclamation for the gravel pit,
You bond the reclamation, which is basically to regrade it, loam it, and seed it.
and to do the landscaping.
Yes.
And allowing it to be done in phases actually makes it more viable, and makes it more likely that it will be completed and built.
That is true.
Because he still has the same amount of time to get it done, but allowing it to be phased, as the condo documents provide, and as the town's lawyers approved, makes this more viable, makes it more likely that it is gonna get done.
But there's not a heck of a lot of protection for neighbors if it doesn't get done.
Reclamation and the
There's
landscape.
reclamation, and the landscaping
Not-
was just for buildings.
Well, you have the bond is for reclamation, which includes loaming and seeding, and the landscaping, which is
Which
whatever,
makes it look
60, 70
like
trees.
natural again.
If you loam it and seed it, it's gonna turn to brush.
Yeah.
Not in 5 years maybe, but it's gonna turn to brush.
A great black raspberry patch for a little bit.
Yeah, she'll have a nice briar patch for a long time.
So you get the cistern as part of first building, right, Craig?
I was gonna go with prior to first CO.
Right.
Doesn't matter which one it is.
Right.
You gotta have the cistern, pave the driveway, limit a common area associated with whatever building the CO is in. I don't care if it's 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Landscaping by the
Landscaping by the
detention.
sediment
pond.
basin, there's one tree by the leach field, so I said end leach field. Somehow, and within 24, what scale is this plan?
Lower right corner. Should have a scale.
80 scale.
Well.
How many knuckles do you have?
I understand, but 80 scale? My finger doesn't do 80 scale very well. So if that's 50, 100. So the buildings are a little over 100 feet apart. 1 to 3. So say pave the limited common area and within 24 feet of the building, around the building?
Yes.
Because each building can be paved the whole way around, there's no island up against the building. Make sense?
Is the area in the parking in the back 24 feet or
Well, I'm
wider?
saying you have to pave all this. If you're gonna get this unit, you gotta pave everything,
And in addition to that, 24 feet
and in
wide
addition to
in
that
the front?
24 feet around. Like here, if he does this building, this is not limited common area. So he has to pave around the side and the front.
And all of this is before a CO?
Before the first CO. If proposed building 4, I should say prior to building 4. That's when the landscaping here has to be done.
Yeah,
You can't do it until then.
no.
Landscaping to south.
And prior to final CO,
when are these little islands gonna be put in, and when are they gonna be,
The two,
Landscape.
the two little islands there?
yes? Suggestions, anybody? Oh, and when are we gonna do these? Forgot about those. Those will be done now.
That part of phase one?
No.
No, they're up against
That
what
back.
was Rice's property, which is no more, like, not longer anymore Rice's property, it's Remillard, so the need for the landscape between those two properties is probably not there anymore, but that's beside the point, it is on the plan.
That's correct.
So you still got plant 13 of those PB thingies, Colorado blue spruce.
Well, what's that building that's parallel to the leach field? Yes,
Two.
we'll plant those when we do that building. Because the first building that he pulled the building permit for is behind,
Yeah, there's no landscaping for that one.
no, but it's below the top of the ridge,
Yeah.
so you can't see from those houses anyways.
I'd say do those islands when he does the center, Craig, because they're gonna be driving all over the friggin' thing.
Yeah, I would say for the final.
That way
We have to
it
do
look,
it as-built.
that way it looks good when it's done.
Right,
You gotta
we
do-
have
you
to
gotta-
do it as built anyways, right, for the whole site.
Yeah.
That is one of the conditions of approval, right?
You gotta do a condo as-built anyway, so, yes.
So, it all will get done.
Prior to CO in the fourth building,
Yeah.
not building 4, but the fourth building. That last building. Islands to be planted.
Paving to be completed. Because you can have a donut in the middle that won't need to be done.
May not go down immediately.
No, but you gotta have to
No.
finish that center section.
The binder will be done.
Right.
What are we missing?
Is that all asphalt curbing in there? There's some asphalt curbing around the parking area? Yeah.
Curbed
Yeah,
the whole- It's curbed the whole way around, isn't it?
So that all has to be done.
Yeah.
So we're gonna use the sign, so. There's no sheet flow.
So, when you got parking around the building, Craig, I do the paving for the parking area, 25 feet around, and the associated curbing?
I would do the curbing last.
Yeah, but then the drainage isn't gonna work right.
Well, he'll have to maintain something along the edge. They're probably not gonna put that asphalt curb in until they do
The final.
Well, he doesn't have any curbing behind building 4.
Yeah, I think we only have curbing on,
or
Yeah, it was on the far side,
here,
right?
or here.
yeah.
It was right in there, I think.
Here's curbing,
Yeah.
a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. Most places doesn't have curbing, and that's because the whole thing's in a hole.
That's because, well.
It's all gonna drain in, it's all gonna drain in anyway.
The parking into the structures,
Yeah, it's all a big cut slope, so you're down in a hole anyway, so it's gotta drain in.
but there's no
Except for
sheet
there's-
flow. There's no design
Great.
sheet flow.
So you're not gonna have all the basins in, or
No,
probably not.
no. But the bases that is designed to take the drainage or the pavement associated with whichever building you build first will be in place. Put it that way.
I'm trying to figure out how to word this. All runoff, I was gonna say all runoff to be directed to the catch basin, but the catch basins aren't gonna be there, so all runoff has to be directed.
Well, they got a site-specific permit, they gotta worry about there too, right?
Nothing against our lovely DES, but they inspect an awful lot, you know what I mean?
I know what you
Yeah,
mean.
okay. That was sarcasm in case everybody's wondering. They do not inspect at all that I know of hardly. Well, they are sending out nasty emails lately. Have you been getting them?
Well, first of all,
Anyway.
we're in the shoreline. So this goes up to the top of this thing. We do have inspections, but that's why we have the building inspector, complete set of plans. I'm sure if there are any violations or perceived violations,
Any other comments from the board temporarily? Well, for now. Nothing, that's why I'm asking about the board first. Then I'm gonna go there. Hearing none for the moment. Anybody from the public like to speak? Everybody shaking their head and holding their hand up. Somebody jump up and come to the podium, please. We know the drill now, right? We even know your name. But you have to say it anyway.
David Nelson.
Thank you.
10 River Road.
Thank you.
My concerns were just, if you're putting just one building in and paving that certain area around it and the road coming in, how exactly are the catch basins, that catch basin for that building, is that gonna work effectively? Where there's no, is it gonna get paved around the basin? Because those are supposed to have a containment in case there's an oil spill. What if something gets on the pavement? How do you know where the water's going? That was just my question.
He must have said something important he's writing down.
I don't know yet. We will-
Just food for thought. I'm just
Okay.
trying to think of other aspects, because,
That's what I was kind of thinking about back there when I said, where's the runoff going, but.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly, because it's like if something goes bad, goes south, and if they don't, the economy does tank, then you're left with this massive hole and no drainage to do anything properly.
Well,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Boy, so much for ladies first. Yes, sir. Nope, go ahead. Nope, 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 nope.
Kevin LaFave, 16 Depot Street. One clarification. When you guys say building 1, building 2, 3, and 4, how about north, south, east, west? Which of the 4 buildings are we talking about? Because there's nothing on any of the paperwork we have saying what is building 1. East would be along the river.
Yes, the Westerly building is doing first.
Westerly's 1, Northerly's 2,
Okay.
Easterly's 3, Southerly's 4.
That's right. That helps it a little bit easier trying to follow along in the storyline here. 5 years is what they mentioned as far as completion. Otherwise, they're going to come back before you guys. Was that 5 years from 2018 when we started this process, or is this
When the date on the plan there, correct?
We gave approval.
day of approval? That's what I'm just trying to get.
August 22nd, 2018, plans were signed. 5 years from then.
No. I said
And
it's 5 years from the date of approval.
I signed the plans, August 22nd, 2018.
Oh, okay, that approval.
That's approval.
So,
So August 22nd, 2023,
All right.
they better be done or come back and see us.
now, and not trying to stir, just want to know if in the 5, if it's not finished at that point, do they come back and look for approval based on grandfathered ideas, or would they be at 5 years be subject to any changes in the?
It'd be a new application.
Kind of depended where they were. If they're in the middle of the building, if they're in the middle of the building, the last building,
If they're in the middle of a building, last building, they have to come in here, they got problems. but.
Right. That's all I have.
Technically, if they build one building and everything tanks, they're gonna have to go by the new regulations, I believe.
You know, I didn't realize this could go on pretty much
The rest of your life.
quite a long period of time, you know? So that's all I'm trying to get is some sort of date so I can eventually see this put to rest. Thank you.
Sheila Cleveland, 368, 370 Riverdale Road. So, once the first building goes up, does that mean they're still hauling gravel out at that time as well?
Yes,
So the gravel
that's what we're hearing today, yes,
hauling is still going to continue after the first building is built?
yes. That's my understanding. Right?
Of course.
Okay, yes.
And there's a mention now of the buildings being leased instead of being bought?
Well, that was all along, that was a
I thought they were going to
possibility.
be sold, not leased.
That was a possibility all along. Just like phase one is, he owns all of phase one, this is phase two, he's doing a condominium, so he has the option to sell them.
I thought they were supposed to be
He
sold.
doesn't have to sell them.
Okay.
Ma'am,
So I'm Judy Cody, 406 Riverdale Road. I don't know specifically what question, I'll put it that way. I have to say, I'm very disappointed as someone who's directly across from the construction that this is 5 years' worth of noise now that we're potentially facing. And I don't know if so my question is there anything that helps manage that in any of these regulations? It's one thing when you're doing the build all at once and getting it over with all at once. It's very different when you're living across the street and having to deal with the noise for 5 years. So I don't know if there's anything that covers that. It's very disappointing.
One more thing is, sorry, but if you had to live across the street from there, and in that neighborhood, sure, that doesn't bother you to see all this or to hear it all, but put yourself into our shoes and have a little compassion, and once in a while, it'd be appreciated. Just the way you answer back, it just sounds like you live there and you don't.
well, to answer the question about, can anything be done about the 5 years? Unfortunately, probably not. I'm talking long. The only thing I can say is more than likely if they're gonna try to build all 4 buildings in 5 years, which obviously they're gonna try that, they aren't gonna be hauling gravel out and building a building, building the last building at the same time. So it's gonna have to be quicker than that. I don't know how much has been hauled out, I don't know how much I've left to haul out, I don't know if you guys do or not. No, okay. That's the way the whole state RSA's are written, you got 5 years for the developments, basically.
Yeah, the 5 years isn't us, that's,
No, I totally, I didn't know if there was something related to the noise or.
Well, 2 years of the 5 years is gone, right?
Yes, thank goodness for that.
Well, 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would assume the owner would probably like to get out of there sooner than later. He must, but I guess
And
it's hard to
again,
predict.
like was mentioned, if it's gonna make it somewhat more difficult to sell / lease units when there's hauling trucks past the unit 5 days a week. I know, anyway. So I guess the question, Mr. Dahlbergs, or whoever, we have runoff going to catch basins in various locations in various limited common areas, all getting directed to a detention basin. So is it safe to say that any, no, that was the wrong way to put that. You have a catch basin, for lack of a better term, it's at the intersection of what was Rice's driveway and the entrance drive?
Catch basin 6. On sheet 5 or 20, the original site plan.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at. The pipe goes across across the access road to a catch basin behind building 1.
Catch basin 5.
You're faster finding those catch basin numbers. 9. Yeah, there's 5. It then goes to catch basin 4. It goes to 3,
3.
to 2, to 1, I assume. I don't see the number 1 yet, to the basin. So I would assume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basins and associated drain line would have to be put in prior
Yes.
to the access road being built.
Yes.
So if the access road is built and paved, that means potentially close to half the drainage system is in.
That is correct.
The only thing missing would be the line from catch basin 2 to catch basin 20 in the center.
Correct. But from catch basin 1, to catch basin 10, catch basin 11.
Could be done with buildings 3 and 4.
Well, if building 4 goes in first, that all has to be done.
Correct.
If building 3 is done second, doesn't make any sense, but then you would have catch basin 10 to 5, 10 to 1.
Yes. But either way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 has to be done.
Either way, they're all gonna be basically installed.
So does that respond to Mr. Nelson's point?
I think so, but I don't think Mr. Nelson probably understands what we're saying.
Basically, yes, Mr. Nelson's concerns are addressed.
You don't understand either, do you?
Because, well, it's not just the town of Ware Planning Board and COs.
Right.
This is an alteration of terrain permit in a shoreline area, highly regulated. It has to be done.
Okay, to answer Mr. Nelson's question, there's a catch basin on the south side of the access drive, near where the intersection of what was Rice's driveway and the access road is gonna be. That catch basin has to be installed with the access drive. Okay? That catch basin drains behind the building to another catch basin,
Yeah.
keeps on going behind the building to another catch basin, goes beside the building, keeps going north to another catch basin, turns a 90 to another catch basin behind building 2 to catch basin 1, then that's the sediment pond.
So they're all tied
So
together.
basically, if you put that one catch basin, if you get the access road, you have to have that one basin in, therefore that whole run has to be put in.
It pretty much covers half the site.
And so
Yes.
if there were a spill anywhere
building-
on the site, when the first building is up,
So the runoff from building 1 and 2 is directed to the catch basins.
okay.
But remember, there are dandy bags and filters in each catch basin.
Yes. To catch the oil.
Yeah,
So, yes,
You know, there's the grease oil separators,
right.
part of the design.
So therefore, back to our phasing question in page 2 of the phasing question.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, boy. Can I write down what I'm thinking first before I mess it up and lose my train of thought? So the drainage for the first CO, at a minimum, has to be CB, where'd you say the number was?
6, 5.
6? 6.
1 through 6, it looked like.
Yes, 1 through 6
what about 10?
to the pond.
That's at building number 4.
If building 3, prior to building 3, catch basin 10 to 1.
Correct.
Prior to 4, catch basin
110.
11 to 10 to 1. prior to the last CO, prior to a CO in the last building. Catch basin 20 to 2. Because if you have 3 buildings built, you're still gonna be hauling material more than likely out of the middle of that thing. You're not gonna be paving that center mess while you're still hauling any material out and bringing in concrete trucks.
Yeah, well, I think,
If your building 4 is your last building, you probably will be able to, but,
yeah, it'll be done, the gravel will be done by then.
yeah, but I'm just saying, even if you're hauling in concrete and so forth, you're not gonna wanna pave,
No.
maybe pave the center of the island.
No,
You don't pave it, there's no reason to have a catch basin there.
right,
I mean, it'll be there, but buried.
correct.
Yes, Marguerite, what was your question?
Is there a town engineer on site like we had in
Meridian?
Portland? Meridian?
Yes. Is supposed to be doing inspections for erosion control. It's
Swift?
not, it's not public it's not public road or anything, so they're not doing inspections for that kind of
Erosion
thing.
and SWIP and,
Yes, erosion, SWIP and things, yes.
thank you. Mr. Remolad's escrow account is all set now.
Anybody else? Thoughts, questions?
Do we want to make those all part of a conditional?
I think we have to have a note on,
Is that like a phasing note on there?
yes,
Phasing completion note?
whatever plan he's gonna record that I'm gonna sign.
Okay. Thank you.
What sheet you want to add it to?
I'm not done thinking about other crap yet. What are we forgetting? Because,
You had a little sticky note on your agenda, did you see?
oh yeah, I read that.
On your summary for,
This is the summary.
Yeah, no,
I don't have a sticky note.
no,
Nothing personal, you didn't get one, I did.
Craig did.
Yeah, I know you're special.
No, because he calls and says, remind me.
I think that's Mike's.
Yes, what was it?
Planting, landscaping.
No, I got mine right here, that's yours. I got mine right here.
Paving,
Sorry.
Cistern.
cistern.
I didn't file it, that's good. The only thing else I can think of is loaming and seeding. But that's getting really.
Well, that's part of the AOT permit anyway. Final grading has to be loam and seeded and vegetated.
Kind of hard to do that till the curbing's all in.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's already recorded.
Right. Right. I mean, it's all in the back behind the building. There's nothing in the, it's those
Got
two
nothing in the
islands.
middle.
Huh?
There's nothing in the middle.
No.
I think my sticky note stuck to something else.
I think you covered it, though. I think there was the items you needed to remember.
I was-
Cistern, paved driveway, common area landscaping by basin and leach field, paved within 24 feet of the building, 6 prior to building.
I was gonna repeat all that stuff for you. Because I'm not sure, I wanna hear it myself.
Okay.
Don't worry. Okay. Prior to the first CO,
You're making a motion?
I'm listing things to make sure everybody is understanding what I'm thinking and what I wrote down. I'm not making a motion, no. Prior to the first CO, the cistern has to be operational, approved by the fire boards.
Accepted.
Fire cistern.
Yeah, accepted by the fire.
Yes,
boards.
oh, I thought you said septic. Yes.
No, accepted.
Accepted.
Yes, accepted, not septic. Access drive has to be paved. The limited common area for each, no, prior to the first CO, limited common area for the building and 24 feet around the building has to be paved. The landscaping.
Base coat paved?
Yes, I'm only talking base coat, I'm sorry. Landscaping of the sediment basin and the leach field has to be in. The drainage from the catch basin 1 to catch basin 6 to the detention pond has to be in. Prior to the CO for building 2, well, it should say in addition, prior to this CO in building 2, the landscaping to the north along the,
It's on the westerly side? Yeah, northwest. Northwest.
landscaping to the northwest of building 2 has to be installed. Prior to building 4, the landscaping to the south has to be installed. Prior to the CO in the last building, the islands have to be loam seeded and paved. Prior to the CO in building 3, the drainage has to be put in catch basin 10 to 1. Prior to the building 4, the drainage has to be put in from catch basin 11 to 10 to 1. Prior to the CO in the last building, the drainage has to be put in from catch basin 20 to 2, 20 to catch basin 2.
The balance of the base needs to be done.
And the entire paved area will be paved in a binder course.
Mhm.
Oh, what was the last one?
Prior to the last CO, the entire area shall be paved with a binder course.
Base coat.
Comments? Questions?
What about the 17 trees on the east side of the detention pond, I think? You had
Yeah,
mentioned.
that was first,
That's the very first thing. It's landscaping and sediment basin and leach field.
Okay, that's the
Prior-
17
prior-
trees?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
17 or 19, whatever it was, yes.
Right.
Comments? Questions? What am I forgetting? What am
I think we got it. I mean, essentially here, we're just determining what happens with each phase.
Monitoring wells?
That's all part of the,
When did we say they were gonna be installed? did we say when they were gonna be installed?
No. Are you asking Mike?
I'm asking everybody.
Was it part of the 19 conditions on that approval?
Yes.
Be on page 2 of the plan approved in 2018. Monitoring wells location and water testing shall be performed in accordance with the groundwater study. Number 22 on the general notes.
What page you on? 1. Nope. What note?
22?
Your
It
plan-
might be different on yours. This
Yes,
is
on-site washing of vehicles shall be prohibited. Monitoring well, 28.
28 on yours?
Monitoring well locations and water testing shall be performed according to.
Monitoring wells, no, 28 on page.
When do we propose to put in the monitoring wells, Mr. Dolberg?
Whatever the report says. I don't believe the monitoring wells are gonna go in until after all the construction is done. I would think that you could just make it per the note that was agreed to on the original plan. Whatever that report said.
So, does that mean if only if only one building is built, the monitoring wells will never be put in?
I didn't say anything such thing.
Could you explain what would happen if only one building is built?
No. We have a water study that was approved, and we have to put monitoring wells in, so I would say that the monitoring wells have to go in according to the study. I don't remember what the study said.
Says first phase on my plan.
No, it says, no, that's the name of the study is first phase.
Correct. Sorry, groundwater study, first phase dated August 22nd, 2018. Yep. And revised.
But the problem with the study is that the study assumed everything was being done simultaneously, and we now have a phasing plan where everything is not being done simultaneously, and there's no connection between the two. The one hasn't been adapted to the new set of circumstances.
Where are you getting that information from, Neil? Do you have the groundwater study in front of you?
I do not. I'm making that assertion because I'm looking for a response from you to say what in fact will happen in the event that the plan is not, that the phasing is not completed.
You don't have it. You made a statement of fact.
I think we need to know what what the study says.
Well, it's already a condition of approval. Can you just say whatever the study says?
But could you
Well-
tell us what the study says? Since the study was done at a time when phasing was not on the table, what is the consequence of a study that doesn't consider phasing when in fact phasing is now on the table?
I don't know. Just tell us to put them in. It's not that difficult.
How about putting in a note that says,
No, it's very simple. Prior to the first CO, monitoring wells MM1, MMI1, MMI2, MMI3, MMI4 will be installed.
There you go.
Before building 1, CO in building 1, proposed well 1. Before building 2, proposed well 2. Before building 3, proposed well 3. Before building 4, proposed well 4.
assume for the moment that only building one is built. Does that-
Then these wells be built and that well will be drilled.
How's, because of what you just said?
Yes.
So that there would be protection for groundwater?
These four wells are all down of everything. And this one's right behind the building. If I remember, everything's flowing to the north.
Correct.
Yeah, everything's flowing to the river.
Yeah, everything's flowing to the river.
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, and 4, one's in the leach field, 3 are around the ditch base, because that's where all the water's going anyway.
And if your conditional use motion passes, those will be installed prior to the CO for 1?
Yes, before the first CO.
Thank you.
And if it's on building 1, you have to do proposed well 1. If it's on 2, you gotta do proposed well 2, 3, 4, 4. With testing per the plan approved. Of course.
Testing for the study after that?
Yes, testing per the study. I knew I was forgetting something. What else am I forgetting?
Let me ask you this, Craig. If the project is not fully phased out, in other words, if only phase 1 or phase 1 and 2 are done, what condition needs to be put in to protect the butters? To make sure this now less extensive project does not adversely affect them?
That's where I was trying to think of the whole time with the monitoring wells. That's where I've been going all night.
What about the visual barrier? What happens if all of the, if that,
Before the first CO, he's gonna have this row of trees gonna be up.
okay?
Before this building is built, this trees are gonna be up. Realizing this is in a hole. Anyway,
What about gravel removal?
well,
What happens if only if one building goes in or 2 buildings go in?
Reclamation bond.
And,
reclamation bond.
It's in place already.
and that will cause the rest of that gravel to be removed?
No,
or just
it'll
loaned
cause it
and
to be
seeded?
graded off and loaned and seeded.
Right. We had that estimation with the original approval. I don't remember what the number was, but it was to reclaim the whole thing. No buildings got built, if it stopped right now.
Craig, wouldn't you assume even if the project fails, they're gonna remove the gravel?
I wouldn't assume that.
No, boy, I would. I mean, there's a valuable asset. Why would we leave it there?
Yeah, but they still got the 5-year window.
Well, if you decide to, I guess, you need to define the project fails. My mind, the project fails, the bank owns it. And then the gravel's not gonna go anywhere, because the bank's not gonna do anything. They're just gonna sell it. That's all the bank's gonna do.
Then the gravel's gonna go somewhere.
Then the bank, then,
But it could fail with Mr. Remillard continuing to maintain ownership. He just decides that it's uneconomic to proceed with
And he hauls-
phase
and he hauls the rest
3,
of the
4, and 5. Then he would take the rest of the gravel out,
Up to a 5-year window.
up to the 5-year window, and at that point, he would have to reclaim it, or the bond would cover the reclamation.
Right.
Why don't you ask the abutters if there's any?
I was gonna do that, but I didn't know if I should or not, to be honest with you.
I think it's
Since they've been here for all these meetings, so, does anybody from the public like to comment on what I've just gone through? Dave, you listening? Would you like to comment, anybody in the public like to comment on what we've been discussing lastly?
I just have one question.
Please.
I was, just
So,
wanted to
so
make sure.
we got a large TV audience, you know that, Dave, you gotta come up and talk to the microphone. I mean, there's thousands of people in Ware dying to hear what you gotta say.
David Nelson, 10 River Road.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure I heard that. So if, let's say that it does go defunct and they don't get all 4 buildings built, he can still, and if he still has ownership, he can still truck all that gravel out after the 5 years?
No. No. Up to the 5 years.
Up to the 5 years,
And
but
when you-
once the
and
5-year
what you're
period
saying-
hits, it has to stop. He cannot just, even though he owns it, he can't just truck the gravel away.
Correct.
Unless he gets a gravel permit.
Right, unless he gets a new site plan approval, new gravel permit. it's-
Okay, that's all, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Is there something that we have not considered in putting these conditions on the approval.
I just have a question about one of the conditions.
No, we're pointing to the microphone, ma'am.
Smile for the camera.
Yeah, right. Again, Judy Cody, 406 Riverdale Road. I didn't know, thank you for thinking of the monitoring wells. I didn't know if monitoring wells were needed in the locations, even if the property isn't being 100% used. So is it a possibility that a building in one location could then, the use of the building in one location could then drain off into the other locations that aren't being built on? And therefore, that is not being monitored if the monitoring wells are not there. I have no idea. It's my ignorance. Do you understand my question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, basically, if building 1 is built and building 4 is not built, could the runoff from building 1 go to the area the building 4 well is going to be monitoring? The way it was set up, all the runoff is going to the catch basins to the detention pond.
Yep.
All the septic is going to the septic tank into the leach field. There's 3 monitoring wells around the detention basin, and there's 1 by the leach field. So theoretically, all the runoff, I said theoretically, all the runoff, all the leachate, whatever you call it,
Leachate.
is going to be going to the area of the 4 monitoring wells. And the only thing I can think of,
Those are the 4 that have to put in right off the bat.
Yep, those will be in regardless.
yes, those are the first, those are in before anything, before any COs.
Yep.
And then the other one, they're basically in the very, close to the, as close to the building as we can get them without being in the pavement. Considering it's all flowing to the north, theoretically, according to the study, I'm going to say it shouldn't. Building 1 should not be polluting building 4 as well. It should be going to those 4.
Okay, so we should be good.
Yes, according to the study, you should be good, yes. I believe so.
Sheila?
Kevin?
5 years, I just want to be done with this.
Are there any changes in trucking hours that would be appropriate as a result of approving phasing that should be considered?
I don't believe so. I don't think that's part of the discussion.
We're trying to get them to get the stuff out as fast as possible.
Yeah, we're trying to use, yeah, we don't want to slow them down, we want to hurry them
Yeah.
up. Get it over with. Mike and Bob, questions, comments? Anything I did to disagree with what I said?
Well, I think you've addressed all the concerns that were raised. And,
Of course, you're not going to tell me a new concern. I knew that.
no, I think phasing it makes the project, gives it the best chance to get done, which is in anybody's interest.
Yeah, it takes a lot of money to build 4 buildings and get them up at one
Just
time.
technical question. Let's assume there's no activity on the site for a period of time, a couple of years. I know there's only 3.5 left to go. So he puts in this building, he puts in 1 more building, and then nothing happens. He's trucking out gravel. Is there do the neighbors have to wait until the end of the 5th year before they can say, hey, how about reclamation?
Yes, they do by law. They do.
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no. You still got to live up to your AOT permit.
Right, the SWIP and AOT
Your
permit.
shoreline permit and the phasing, the landscaping and the phasing we discussed.
Yeah, because the AOT permit has lack of activity clauses in it.
That's correct.
if no activity happens in 30 days, they have to, or whatever, there's a time window in
They have to
there.
Stabilize the area.
Yes.
Right.
Which means planting. I mean, you just can't pave it, but I guess, but. But other than that, no. Yes, sir.
Last minute
I got him trained. I don't have to point anymore, I don't think.
Kevin, 16 Depot Street. There is that access road that's coming from Phase 1 into Phase 2. Is that now where all the traffic will go through, so they come back out onto Oil, or are they still gonna use Mr. Remolard's driveway that he now owns? It used to be the Rice's driveway to
Gotta
go
use
up.
oil mill.
Oil mill only.
No, we're not, that's just for gravel, because for ease.
Okay.
All the traffic has to go through.
Just wanted to make sure, 'cause I know you've been using it for the gravel, and that's understandable. I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't gonna be used for the construction and everything else. All right.
On note 18, it says a conditional use permit has been requested to allow more than 10% lot coverage. Is it approved, or
Well,
is it
this note
requested?
19 says a conditional use permit has been approved by the Ware Planning Board to allow more than
Okay,
10%
so
lot
the new
coverage.
one has been approved?
Yes. We talked about that for a long time.
Okay.
I bet you guys want me to make the motion, don't you?
You can read your writing. I'll make a motion, Craig make a motion. How's that?
Okay. Should get a drink of water before I do this one. I make a motion, we approve the plan with the following notes to be
The
added.
phasing plan,
Yes, it's the only phase we want to talk about.
dated
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion, we conditionally approve the phasing plan for Whitetail Commercial Development dated November 19th, 2019. With the following notes to be added. I would prefer them to be in the on the overview plan, I believe, because that's where all the other notes are. Prior to the first CO in Phase 2, the cistern shall be operational. The access drive shall be paved from Phase 1 to the limited common area of whichever building is being built, has been built. The pavement shall extend 24 feet around the building. The landscaping, the landscaping shown on the approved plans between building two and the detention basin and the leach, and building 2 and the effluent disposal area shall be planted. The drainage from catch basin 1, catch basin 6, and to the detention pond has to be installed. Monitoring wells MI1, through MI4 shall be installed.
and operating.
Well, the monitoring wells, as soon as they drill them.
Prior to the CO in building 4. The landscaping to the south needs to be installed. And the drainage from catch basin 11 to catch basin 10 to catch basin 1 needs to be installed. Prior to building 2, the landscaping to the northwest needs to be installed. Prior to building 3, catch basin, or the drainage from catch basin 10 to 1 needs to be installed. No matter the order, prior to the last CO, the drainage from catch basin 20 to 2 needs to be installed. All the pavement shown on the site plan needs to be installed. The 2 islands need to be planted. And I kind of messed up from my wonderful order there, but anyway. Additionally, proposed monitoring well 1 needs to be installed before CO in building 1. Proposed monitoring well 2 needs to be installed before building permit on 2. Proposed monitoring well 3 before building permit on 3, or CO in 3. Proposed monitoring well 4 prior to the building CO in building 4. When I mention paving, I mean binder course, not wearing course, obviously.
Yeah, binder course.
Just want to make sure everybody's aware of that before prior to the last CO, or a CO in the last building, you want everything seated? You want everything seated?
Well, when they gotta do the curbing.
Okay, never mind. I'm done with my motion. I'm done.
Can't let them see till the
I
curb
quit.
goes in.
You need to second the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion. The only thing I can think of is additionally, do we want to add the curbing and the wearing course to be installed 1 year after the final building has a CO?
That could be at the end of the 6th year.
Could be,
But at that point, the project would be vested.
yes.
5-year rules.
The curbing and what?
Curbing, the wearing course,
And the balance for the landscaping.
seeding, mulching, loaming, seeding, mulching, the other way around, I guess, but either way.
If it's not done by the end of the project or the end of 5 years, you give them a year after.
I was gonna give them a year after the last CO, or last building, a CO for the last building.
1 year after last year.
The first CO in the last building. If not, we got a bond that we do, we can
Okay.
pull the landscaping one ourselves and do it. And if I remember right, the trees, et cetera, are bonded for 2 years after they're planted.
That's
I
correct.
remember right. So hopefully they'll live for 2 years. Hopefully live for 100 years, but if they don't live for 2, they're gonna get replanted, right?
Question. 2, actually. Do they have a right to phasing, or is this something that is discretionary with the planning board?
I'll defer to Mr. Attorney Guy there. 'Cause I don't know the answer to that one.
Phasing was something that was part of the condominium documents that were amended and reviewed and approved by town council.
Well,
That wasn't the question.
The question is, do you have the right to phase it now?
Can this planning board in its discretion say yay or nay?
I think this is the issue, is with 5 years, you can't say we have to build it all at once. So with a 5-year window, we can do it any way we want.
Correct.
That's why we came to this board
I understand that.
requesting guidance, and I think the conditions provide that.
But, so your answer to the question is it is discretionary?
I don't think it is. I don't think you can set a time frame on, you build all now by this date.
We haven't.
Right? So I don't think it is discretionary. I think
Your current plan allows you to build at any time you want within the 5-year window.
Correct.
But you're asking in this application to change that. And my question is this something you can do of right, or is this something where the planning board can say, thank you, but we don't believe phasing is in the best interests of this project, or the best interests of the town in accordance with the zoning ordinance?
I think
I understand
I
we
don't
buy
think
a
you have
lawsuit.
No,
but
I don't think you have
that's-
discretion, no. I think
Could
this
you
is
cite something which supports that?
because you've approved a plan with conditions based on all sort of the technical details that were studied and reviewed, as we've discussed, and to impose a limitation by not letting us phase, you're imposing a restriction and a limitation, which I think would amount to a taking, yes. So I don't think you have discretion. You have discretion to impose reasonable conditions, which you have, to make the phasing feasible and to accomplish the goals of this planning board. But I think if you were to deny the request for phasing, it would have a constitutional problem.
One thing to remember for the board and for everybody, this phasing plan also allows him to sell units in phase 1 as soon as the phasing plan's approved, which I assume is part of the reason for this whole thing.
Which he cannot do now.
We can't do it now because it's not it's not a condominium, it's not built yet.
So I find your position, not for me to say. I hear your position. The next question is are there?
Thank you.
Does the approval of this phasing put the abutters in a better or a worse position? In other words, if we approve this, are the abutters better off or worse off than if we don't approve it?
I have no clue.
Well, right
Right
now, he can't sell anything until everything's done,
Yes.
right?
Right,
Which means he's going to be hauling gravel
yes.
and hoping he can get his financing and the market remains buoyant.
Yes.
Okay. If he doesn't get, if he gets the phasing, then he can start selling things immediately, taking advantage of the current market, and only building to the extent that the market supports his activity. But in the meantime, he's extended, one would think, but I don't know this, and that's why I'm asking the question, he's extending the period of time when the abutters suffer from the noise and...
No.
No. The time for the 5 years is the 5 years.
And I think he could get COs and rent things out until it was all done, then sell.
Yeah, under the current
Right,
approval. Oh, absolutely.
which is not much different than what he's proposing to do with the phasing.
Well, it may be, I don't know enough about the market to know whether selling versus renting is more profitable at this point.
But if I may add, what this board did 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, was go through a very thorough analysis over many, many meetings to determine that this project did meet the criteria for site plan approval, which one of the criteria is it has to benefit the town. And this phasing gives this project the best chance to succeed, which is in the town's interest and in the neighbor's interest.
The reason for phase 1 and phase 2 is the original condominium declaration of condominium mistakenly included the unbuilt buildings in the condominium. It can't be done. That lawyer messed up.
I assume he's not sitting next to you.
He is not sitting next to me. And in fact, this is not the condominium attorney that prepared the amended declaration. The reason for the phasing is to allow the sale of buildings or units in phase 1, because at this point, we're dead in the water. He can't sell anything because the condominium is wrong. So we're agreeing to these conditions, which the stuff has to be done anyways. We're just quantifying what needs to be done when. If you denied it, my anticipation would be that we would appeal,
Oh, yeah.
then we would, if we lost on appeal to the zoning board, we would file suit and string it out and have a judge say, well, you have a condominium that was incorrectly prepared, through no fault of Mr. Remowitz, have an approved project that met every single requirement, and then we'll extend the period for build-out for another 3 or 4 years after the 5.
May I ask the abutters if they have a problem with the phasing?
No, come
I
on.
think it's
That's
been asked
inappropriate.
several times already, for one thing, and we have a motion on the table and we're discussing a motion.
You're correct.
To answer your previous question, the only thing for or against the abutters, I think, I don't think the phasing, it may take 5 years either way. The market economy is gonna determine whether it's 3.5 more years, or 2 years, or 1 year. It's not gonna be the phasing plan. It's gonna be the market. The only thing the phasing plan does is it gets their landscaping built with the first, gets most of them to get the landscape they need and buffer planted sooner. And the sooner it gets planted, the sooner it starts growing and starts hiding things. That's the only thing it really does. Everything else is the same, I think.
So,
That's why I had a hard time answering your question, because I don't see any difference.
so worst case, this is approved. He starts selling condos. The market tanks. Nothing happens for 4 years. Gravel's removed.
Yep.
And at the end of 4 years, most of the landscaping, et cetera, would go in.
We would take the bond, we would plant,
Right.
we would grade it, we would loam it, we would seed it, we'd plant the landscaping, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's with or without the phasing plan, same.
Yep.
I got further discussion on my own motion. I made an email to Kelly a while ago. I believe the original approval, you had to get selectmen's approval to haul the gravel out?
Nope.
No? If you're over a certain yardage per year, you have,
Incidental.
if you're over a certain yardage a year, you still have to pay gravel tax on it?
Well, that's between Mr. Remillard and the town, but we don't need permission from the selectmen to haul gravel. That's incidental to the development.
Okay. In that case, I want to make a note. Can you check with assessing to see if the gravel tax is being paid? If it's over, I don't remember the number,
Okay.
but a couple projects I did on town, he asked me about it, and we did a calculation, we were well under it. But I know you were up to around 40,000 yards or something like that, something astronomical compared to what I was doing on my couple projects, and I think it's 5,000 yards, I'm not, a year, but I'm not, don't quote me on that, it may not be that number.
Okay.
So at least check it. Further discussion. We have a motion and a second.
I thought you were gonna amend the motion. You spoke after you had something you wanted to do.
That was it. the
That was
whole-
it.
About the gravel
That was the
tax.
hauling, but I'm not gonna change the motion.
Okay.
Hearing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Congratulations. Thank you.
Very much.
See you in 5 years.
Why don't you fill out that voluntary form, to join us, and you can see us every other week.
It's 3.5 years.
Oh, 3.5.
Any one,
3.5.
3 of you people could do
Wanna go
that.
For another phase.
Judy could join us, Kevin could join us, Sheila can't, but the other 3 can. What do you mean?
Why can't Sheila?
She lives in New Boston.
I couldn't handle the pay.
Your taxes
Be
could
over your
handle
tax
it.
bracket.
Give me a minute to clean this mess up, please. Marguerite, you got plans?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
phrase, "the patience of a saint" comes to mind.
Oh,
That's appropriate.
Yes.
for who? Us, the abutters, or them?
The next applicants.
So basically, this really doesn't adversely affect. I think it helps.
Because
It's
it might
going.
get done quicker.
Yeah. it's going.
Have an updated summary on that one today.
Yes, right there.
Oh, another pretty picture. I like that.
The next item on the agenda is a continuation of a change of use site plan for Ware Christian Church for property at 325, 327 North Stark Highway.
Pastor Stockhouse from Ware Christian Church.
Sir, yes.
Distributed a diagram of what we discussed on the walkthrough pertaining to parking.
So basically, what you're showing us is 2,400 square feet in the office/meeting room with parking of 1 space per 300, needing 8 spaces, and 2,550 square feet of the multi-use ministry building needing 1 space per 150 square feet, so it needs 17, for a grand total of 25, and you're showing 26.
Correct.
That was for our lovely TV audience, as you know.
Okay.
Because they can't see the plan, and they weren't on the sidewalk. You added space 18 where we talked about.
Yeah, I like that better up against the building than up against the wetlands.
Yes, I like to move the parking lot that way. So Kelly's checklist has a couple items she's questioning / there's not gonna be any the outside lighting's gonna remain the same as shown on this
Correct.
plan?
Correct.
3 lights in the multi-use building? That's it?
Correct,
Oh, I see.
because that, the existing door in the corner, which has 2 lights, was going to be removed.
And
And most
you-
likely be lighting on the canopy under the main entrance there. And the porches on the White House office meeting building already have lighting there. We're not adding any additional lighting.
So on the multi-use ministry building, you are adding?
There will be one, probably a soffit light underneath that, entrance, the main entrance there. Under this, but in terms of
So
large.
these 3 are existing?
Correct.
Thank you.
The only lighting we would add is possibly underneath that. But with this particular light on this corner, it will illuminate that area anyways.
No lighting at the office meeting room building, the white building?
Just what's there.
Just
There's
what's there.
currently
There's
lighting
something
on-
under there.
the-
Underneath that, under porch.
On the, both the front porch and the side porch.
You mentioned sidewalk trash was gonna be in a trash can, basically.
Yep. 96 gallon, 2 96-gallon bins, taken care of weekly.
Snow removal?
Yeah, where are we gonna put snow storage?
Oh, yeah, there's parking over there now.
Well, the area right in front of the 11 through 15, 16, 17 is where most of that snow will go.
Between there and the road?
Yes. Presently, I think it's either I think it's 1.25 inch stone in that area, as well as the end towards 17.
You could even extend it west from 17.
Okay. Right. We're not, so, just so you know, for this particular winter, we're not policing that because we're not using the building. But in that area, just off the edge, I mean, there's sizable amount of gravel beyond the pavement at the end of 17. But there is a stump there that is not pleasant to plow into.
No, they aren't.
And given the fact that we didn't get the property until November, and then it snowed, so we, weren't able to go and police that yet. But that will probably be ground down or dug up in order to facilitate moving that snow down that way. The snow in front of 1 through 7 is going to be plowed over the banking, over the top of that, because all that fencing will be, which has been already removed, the posts will be taken out, so it would just be pushed over the top. And that's going to be lawn that will be pushed onto. So it just makes the spring cleanup even more delightful.
Up the hill.
Yep.
You ready for motion?
Well, I'm going to ask one more question first. Are you going to add any landscaping
In regards,
in general?
yes, mainly loam. So the back slope there in front of 23 to 26, that whole area is right now gravel. Probably going to top dress that with loam and grass that. The behind, or the area around the multi-use building is all gravel right now. We don't intend to do anything with that at this point. We do on the front of the building, the white building, which is the office building, we've already removed shrubs that were overgrown, and we'll police that, and as well as to the right where that fire escape will be. That will be all lawn, which is, historically, it's been lawn, but the previous owner did not police it, and it was all sumac grown up. And we
Yeah,
had
that
already
area,
cut
that
that
area
already
where
down.
the leach field was in that
Right.
corner over there.
Correct.
Yeah. Any questions from the public? Seeing none? Any questions for the board? From the board?
Well, the only thing, it's probably not an issue, but those parking areas, 11 through 17, I mean, you probably would try to avoid, I don't know if salt and snow melt really hurt, but that all flows into the river, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we got the same problem with the state just sanding and salting in front of my house, which is directly across the street. So everything that runs off the top of the hill on the church's property across the street on lot 68 finds itself in a catch basin in front of my house, which when it's high volume, it cannot hold it. It's insufficient. So it's taken out, I'd say about 6 to 8 inches of my driveway every year. So Peter filled it in just before this, the first of the year, so that we would not be driving through a foot-deep puddle. But that goes across the street to come into the upper side of the bridge to spill in.
Well, I guess you understand what I'm.
Yes, I understand what you're talking about. Yeah, we don't sand, I mean, we don't salt, we're not planning to salt that area anyways. What we will practically get salted anyways. We won't do it, the state will do it for us. The same thing happens in the parking lot up at the church. The first 4 feet into, even on the hot top and on the gravel, melts first because of the fact that our parking is below the state highway.
Runoff and overspray.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's the only, and that's not a benefit, to be honest.
No.
It's a pain plowing when you're 3/4 of your parking lot is frozen and a quarter of it is soft. You get a lot of neck and back pain.
Can that salt go near the wetlands though,
It's not salt they're putting down.
from the parking lot?
It's salt from the state highway.
State Highway putting it down. Yeah, with both that part of their roads, actually, even all the way up Reservoir Drive, I don't think that's a no-salt area designated.
Oh, maybe because of the wetland.
It is not designated as a low-salt area or a no-salt area, to my knowledge. And there's no signage up to say that.
Right.
So that's something that what the Piscataqua watershed would have to consider.
Kelly mentioned handicap parking.
Handicap parking would be in number 1, 2, possibly 3.
Yeah, if they are wide enough for a handicap parking space.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, we would have that way now.
18 could be too.
Correct. And we're also looking at 25, 26 possibly, because it's right by the main entrance. And actually, all 4 of those spaces could be handicap parking.
Okay.
Possibly. So, we have, up at the church, we've added 5 additional handicap spaces from what we had before, because we just needed it for older folks and disabled folks and so forth. So we're sensitive to that. My grandson has spina bifida. He's in a wheelchair, and so getting in and out of buildings is something we're paying attention to as far as disability access. But that seems to be the norm for us. We tend to draw families that have disabled or learning disabled children, special needs kids, because we're accepting of that and have been since I've been there for 18 years.
So could we make a little revision on this and show some snow storage areas like we talked about? And just add a note, no salt to be used on this property?
Correct.
Put a revision date on it, just so you know it's revised. How's that, Neil?
Works for me.
Is that a motion you just made?
I just did.
Did you hear that? I forgot her name. I'm terrible.
The motion is to approve the application
You're doing a good job.
with the condition that the plot plan be revised showing snow storage areas, a statement that no salt is to be used on the property, and a revision and a revised date placed on the plan.
And submitted by,
ASAP.
okay,
Oh,
Well, probably before you get a building permit for.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
can we add a third thing, having a planning board approval block? So I can sign the plan?
Okay.
I'll show you how to do that.
I thought you would probably appreciate that part, right?
Yeah, that was part of the motion.
Yes, that was part of the motion.
I'll second Neil's motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Congratulations.
We'd like to express our thanks to you for the time you've taken to review this application and also to walk the site with us so that we could have a better understanding how to best use the facility that God has given us.
Been a pleasure.
Would you care to tell us how you enjoyed this meeting and whether you intend
I'm
to
still-
attend others?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get him to sign that
He asked me
volunteer
as
form,
soon as I
too.
walked in to see, and to be honest, I'm praying about it, thinking about it. So I might be applying for alternate, because I just live down the street, so I can jump in at the moment's notice.
There we
Generally,
go.
on Thursday nights, I'm running a prayer meeting from 6:30 to 7:30.
Well,
So,
don't take this the wrong way, but we could use a prayer meeting every once in a while, right here.
so, but,
Oh, wait, we need the,
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You said you had a sample plan board?
Yeah, you can come in tomorrow or whenever you're gonna revise the plan before you're done.
Yeah, I can do it. If you have an email, get an email or something.
Yeah, I can do it tomorrow for you.
Okay.
We got minutes from January 23rd.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
You see anything?
I'm looking.
On number 4, Craig, was that Board of Selectmen must approve site plan, should it be signed? Remember the lawyer questioned that?
Oh, I thought your question was from the minutes of a year and a half ago.
No.
Let's strike 4.
I gotta say, what is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, she asked me about that. I thought it was a gravel, but I don't.
Strike that and renumber.
Yes.
Cross out
We didn't
see
talk about
attached
this,
because
that's
it's
right.
too late to
Okay.
attach it now. I can't scan it. Yeah,
I didn't even read that letter.
just put red in front
Night.
and
Okay.
The, page 2, down the bottom, number 1.
Yep.
It's not a well easement, it's a well release form.
Where are you, Jim?
Right here.
page 2 on the bottom.
Note 1 of.
What's the in front of barn part then?
It was that, it was mentioning that well that was in front of the barn. Otherwise, you didn't know what well was needing a release.
Oh. I think whitetail exhausted me.
You can put the subdivision regs on hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can cross out the word the. You continue this hearing until the Thursday.
Okay. After 4 pages,
I know.
Make a motion to approve the January 23rd minutes as amended.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Sure. Aren't we going to approve the minutes of the site walk?
We had minutes of site walk. I printed them and I had them here someplace.
Oh, yeah, I didn't bring my copy.
Don't worry about it. We can approve it. It didn't say very much, and
I have
it's,
them.
I actually read them. No, I did read them, I didn't print them. I read them on the screen, I said, I don't need to print these, they're always short.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the site walk of
February 1st.
February 1st, 2 site walks,
Second?
2 sets of minutes.
Oh, no, Chuck, you need to second.
I need to second it?
Yeah, I wrote them.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Yay.
Thank you for the updated statute book.
Continue them? Just like
Yeah.
I mentioned in the minutes that we're continuing.
Continuing what?
Subdivision.
Subdivision.
The subdivision.
Why do we have
Hearing.
to continue it? Just put it on the next agenda. Is this, this is subject to the public hearing?
Yes.
So
It was-
moved.
It was to the very beginning, but now that you're not doing zoning anymore, it's really just subdivision.
Right.
I'll just, be nice if you'd mention it in the minutes, just in case.
Neil made a motion to continue it to the next meeting.
Okay?
Bruce just seconded it.
Second it.
See? Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we adjourned, Mr. Chairman?
Nope, I don't declare anything over.
We adjourn?
People get upset when I do that.
Nobody gets upset. We
One
appreciate your
person to my-
exercising your
One person to my
authority.
left gets upset when I
Yeah,
do that.
hit the switch.
Yeah, but we have to educate her
I'm
as
only
to
gonna-
what